So the first statement is there is something stable, constant, and ever present in my experience.
There is something stable, constant, and ever present in my experience. Not yet, I would say. Um, yes, something I experience time to time, but I would not say it is constant. Its existence is constant, I feel, because one can tap into it anytime. It is not that it can only be tapped into in evenings or in days or mornings. So I feel like one can lean into a state of being present and fully there, fully in an embodied sense, I think. Um, so yeah, and for me, where I am, I wouldn't definitely not say it's stable. The moment I'm triggered or have something I'm feeling angry or irritated about, for example, the mind kind of races into its own ways of making meaning of what's happening, right? When I'm able to catch myself and experience reality, my emotions in a raw and direct way, then I experience a certain presence. Then I experience uh, uh, a certain presence that exists. So I would say that's the stable, constant
Yes.
thing that's always present. My leaning into it is not constant. I think that's what I would
Yes.
say.
Okay, so that's interesting because what you're saying is it is constant. My experience of it is not constant.
Right, right, yeah.
Well, how do you know it's constant if it's not in your experience all the time?
I mean, I guess in the sense it's like if there is a man in a home and whenever you ring the bell, the man opens the door, then it's fair to assume that the man is in the house all the time
Okay.
because at the most unexpected times also if you suddenly open the door and say boo, the man is still there. So something like that. Its access is not limited by place, people, context or anything. I feel it there is access to it intentionally, unintentionally, at the most random moments also. So I do feel that it's reality. I feel in one level it's the layer of reality that exists. I think a certain layer of reality which is always there. Yeah.
So, um, can we talk about that layer of reality?
Sure.
Does it have any qualities?
Yes, I can talk a bit about my experience with mental health first. So I have a bipolar diagnosis, a bipolar disorder diagnosis, and in bipolar one has depressions and manias, and one moves away from the shared reality, the consensus reality, as we say, that human beings kind of agrees reality. One kind of floats away,
Okay.
and as one floats away, as I float away, I'm able to connect to different realms and realities, right, which are not shared by others, but which are very quote unquote real for me. Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I think there is an experience of several different realities that, I mean, almost like bands which are forever present. That's at least my subjective experiences, that there are all these different bands that are present, right? And or the other way I make sense of it is like a radio, right? So radio has bands like AM, FM, shortwave, medium wave, and then it has a tuner knob with which you can tune into a specific wave, and then it has a volume, so you can
Yes.
kind of tune in.
Yes.
But whatever that combination is, kind of the radio is there. Like there's always a radio,
Yes.
right? So there are of course waves, but the I think the base where those waves are landing is always present. I think that's kind of how what I'm kind of alluding to, that whichever realities my mind traverses into, my breath is ever present, my being is ever present, my body is ever present,
Yes.
my connection to life and reality is ever present. So I would say that is a common feature across all these realms, all these realities, I think.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so I would say if one kind of thinks about that what's always present across all these realities, you can kind of mathematically take out a constant, right? Saying this is always present in whatever, however manic one is or however depressed one is.
Yes.
These are present, and I feel I've gone to far extremes in my own being and psyche, and I've also been lost, I think, in some of these worlds and realities. Um, and which is why I said it's never constant. My experience of it is not constant, right?
Yeah.
And yet there is a homecoming. There's a coming back to it time to time. I think that's fair.
So, I'm very. Tell me if you're okay speaking about it, but you're the first person I'm interviewing who has the experience of depression and mania. And I'm very interested to know this reality, the sense of reality. Does it change? Is it different when you are in the manic phase or in the depressed phase?
In the manic phase, it definitely changes. It's different, though. I mean, the shared reality is the same, but the way it shows up for me is very two more levels alive and animated, right? And everything is enticing and a world within itself. Like every painting in this room would become a world one can enter into and engage with, kind of a energy. And one is, yeah, I think the mind is not able to fully grasp what is happening because of its complexity, its immensity. So the mind opens up to a reality that it's not fully able to grasp. I think that's what I would say, and therefore is perplexed.
So I'm asking you about the flavor of that which is constant and stable and ever present. Does any of the qualities of it change depending on your which band of experience you're connected to?
Yeah, so in parts of mania, for example, the sense of sacredness or aliveness is heightened. You feel everything is more sacred, everything is more connected, more alive. Uh, Anyways, in general, I find like inanimate objects as being living, kind of, I have that layer always on for me, like I feel a connection to them. In mania, some of that animation of the world gets heightened, the sacredness gets heightened, the connection to the spiritual or the beyond gets heightened. So those definitely get heightened. In depressions, the texture is very different, right? The stillness gets heightened. Like in depression, you have more access to the stillness that is within, because yeah, the energy of the body is kind of completely settled and yeah, almost grieving, right? So there is a certain stillness. Whereas in mania, it's quite the opposite. There is breadth and yeah.